I think that at the end of the day, if we say we compare sexual energy as creative power or electricity, and depending on the kind of people, their nature or their design, they create geometrical forms, combinations, subtle, not so subtle, obvious, not so obvious, in order to generate a certain complex that sustains itself. I hope this makes sense. It feels to me that in order to have a sense of what sexuality or healthy sexuality is, we have to realize that first there is what I call a primary lesion, something that makes the human being fundamentally diseased, which creates a human race that is in scarcity. And therefore it will create geometrical forms, grids of power to sustain itself in the light of the scarcity. If now there was no scarcity, how would sexuality engage itself? Now that's the question. But I'm not going to have a conversation about sexuality unless I bring in context what's actually going on. Human beings are diseased. There's a fundamental disease in the man. There's a fundamental dis-ease in the woman. It's spoken about in many traditions, allegorically. It doesn't matter, but there is something clearly, quote-unquote, flawed. I do insist on flawed. And that creates scarcity. That means there's a lack of resource, a lack of inner power, a lack of connection. And therefore, from that point, what is the first thing that the human being is going to try to create? Compensation systems. It's not trying to create life. It's trying to create compensation system in order to survive. So this is the difference between survive and live. Surviving and life. So now everybody wants to say, I want to do more than just survive, I want to live. Fantastic, I totally understand. It's a load of shit, however. You have to actually go and explore the psyche and the underworld to realize what's my actual situation from an energetic point of view. This is deep, this is complex. Complex doesn't mean it's complicated. Complex means there's a lot of layers. That's what complex means. Complicated means it's fucking complicated, right? Like some certain crypto projects. That's complicated, it's a mess. Complex means there's a lot of layers. What we're talking about is the exploration of the psyche. It is extremely complex. There are so many layers and textures. So the point of what I'm trying to say is that in a space of dis-ease where there's a scarcity, people, human beings, will use their generative energy to create, literally the word is create, compensations in order to be able to survive. And as we've discussed, today is Wednesday, it was literally Monday in the Lionheart series with the dudes. We were speaking about this little thing. So you need to compensate to survive in order to be able to hopefully procreate or give yourself a couple of more years to survive. So in the hope that maybe there's a solution. So I generally say for another generation at least. Now things have changed, people don't have no more babies, so something very odd is happening, which opens to another conversation, a great one to have. Let's have it after, but let's continue on the flow. So at this stage, what we're witnessing is a dis-ease sexuality, meaning sexuality which is used in order to survive. Now one can say, is there anything else to do with sexuality? I say yes, but we can also take this really deep. Let's try to keep things simple. So when there is a need to survive, well, now it depends on you, your constitution, your background, your heritage, your lineage, the experiences and what kind of grid you make. Grid meaning connections. That's what a grid is, what I'm talking about, literally. If you see a vagina as a negative node and a so-called cock as a positive node, we're trying to create circuits, literally circuits of energy that, okay, this is going to hold itself. If we add a little bit of spice here, and a little bit of this here, and we tweak this, it creates a grid, and that grid creates a light. It's a bullshit light, it's a fake light, but it allows, it's like, if you look at the economic system today is just debt. There is only debt, and more debt. Yet, everything that our modern world has birthed is due to that system. So somehow that system is not bad, It's birthed the world as we know today with the camera filming, you watching this on YouTube. All the luxuries that we have is based on a debt system. So yeah, we can say it's a horrible system, it's this and that. If you know anything about economics, fine, it's not the point. The point is, it works from a point of view. It does something from a point of view. So if we go back to sexuality in the light of a primary lesion, that means something that is fundamentally flawed in the human being, which creates a scarcity in resources, energetic resources, and interconnection. Therefore, when human beings now want to connect together, they are going to try to create grids in order to create a compensational system, a system that allows this group of people who are connected to survive. It may not be optimal, but it still works and it generates something. And what it generates is going to allow, at least for one generation or for a couple of minutes, a form of thriving, a form of stimulation. Stimulation is not circulation of energy. Circulation of energy is equal to relaxation. Stimulation is when there is no relaxation. We scratch, 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 scratch. It creates a push, like taking cacao or coffee. It stimulates. It doesn't give you energy. It irritates the system. The irritation generates a form of energy circulation, which can and will birth something which is going to help that system survive for a certain amount of time. Now, I don't know if you're able to follow what I'm saying. What I'm saying is tight, though. I have no leak in my shit today. I'm tight as fuck. So anyways, so when we're now in the study of sexuality or the study of disease or the study of human beings or the study of people, and then you see, well, how do people survive in time? What's their strategy? So then you start, when you go a little deeper enough and you get past the surface and the basic surface symptoms, it always brings you back to sexuality. Sexuality meaning generative power, right? Not a cock fucking a cunt or an anus. This is your obsessive mindset of sexuality. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about power, literally. And then you see the kind of dynamics that people have. All these dynamics that a righteous person can judge as this and this and that. Yeah, sure. You can judge it from a so-called righteous place because this is the way it should be. And then there's different kinds. You could judge this, but I don't judge that. That's fine, but this is horrible and this is acceptable. All this is rubbish. Remove it. And just look at it as energy grids, shapes of geometry. Some are more fine-tuned, some are optimal, some are less optimal, some will last longer, some will last longer. It's a question of drawing in geometry. But the point is to allow a form of survival. So if you now start to study yourself and start to see your mental patterns and how your mental patterns start to dance with different people, which start to create these links that begin to create geometrical shapes, right? And you start to judge it according to your so-called ideas of how it should be or shouldn't be, even if your so-called ideals of this should be because one woman meets one man and they're in love. Let's pretend that this is the case. It's not even the subject of conversation. You're now judging intelligence. Because this is brilliant. This is pure genius. It's the pure brilliance of nature in the light of a primary lesion. That means this is all the intelligence of creation has to be mobilized in a negative way meaning despite the issue, in order to survive. All the power is there. Negative mean adharmic. This is going to get complicated. I withdraw this. So if you judge it now, you don't understand. If you judge it now, you don't understand the dynamics you're creating. You can't comprehend yourself. You can't use it as a mirror to see who you are, why you are the way you are, what are your, I don't want to say weaknesses, but literally where I have energetic leakages or flaws that make me engage in certain dynamics, which create these certain geometrical forms of energy, and that also create a certain kind of suffering. Remember, if there's scarcity, that means there's a leak, that means there's a suffering. Right? So let's say I'm in a boat and the boat is sinking. So I'm going to die. So if I decide now, because there's a small hole, I'm going to spend the rest of my life taking the water out. Am I not going to suffer? Sure. Because you have to make the same gesture over and over. You're overstressed all the time, but you're not going to sink. So what I'm trying to say is that you're confronted with something that means death for you. You create a compensational system that allows you to survive temporarily at least, but it generates a form of suffering. And it's compounded now with the other dynamics, and then it starts to increase, and as you get more fatigued, so let's say if we go back to our little shuttle and you're trying to empty the water, the first couple of days you're fine. After a couple of weeks, your arms start to hurt, your ankles start to hurt, your wrists start to hurt, everything starts to hurt, so you need to compensate more. So it's the suffering generated by these grids is going to be increasing. And from generation to the next, it gets worse and worse and worse because the issue is never resolved and there's an underlying fatigue that is installed, and it grows and it grows and it grows. Anyways, this is a bit complex. Maybe you understand what I'm saying. If you don't, you need to watch all the rest of my shit to have a better understanding of what I'm saying, but I'm tight right now. So, anyways, to conclude this, because I'm talking to a girl, I'm like, yeah, some strategies are disgusting. Let's be honest, right? Remove that. You can't observe yourself. You can't study yourself if there's a judgment, because that means there's a filter between you the experience, which is, well, where did that filter come from? Let's say you meet a creature that enjoys to eat shit. It enjoys to eat shit. It doesn't judge the fact that it eats shit. For it, it's not shit, it's food. It has no complaint. Now, let's say you take that creature and you say, you know, shit is evil. Now, when it eats shit, it feels bad. Yeah, but it still loves shit. It's the key word. It still loves to eat the shit. But now it can't love it fully because it's been told that shit is bad. So it's impossible to study yourself if there's a filter and a veil that blocks you from actually living the experiencing, perceiving yourself, experiencing yourself within that dynamic, so that you can feel, well, the part of you that gets intoxicated by that dynamic. You get literally intoxicated. That is the difference between health and not health. Health, there is no intoxication. It's due to relaxation. Relaxation doesn't give you intoxication. And when you're tense, that means you're in survival mode. You will get intoxicated. It means you get high. And you call that bliss. It's not bliss, it's being high. It's irrelevant. This is not a judgment. So when you're in that space, well, you fucking love ask a junkie if you don't love his hit. Of course he loves his hit. He loves everything about the hit, including the phase where he's going to go get that drug and prepare the drug and take the drug. But there's another side somewhere also. It creates pain. The experience is a form of prison. It's always the same. You can't go further than that, no matter how hard you try. It has a bunch of side effects. And more importantly, it's a form of jail. You're limited because of it. So in the same way, human beings have a sexual potential, and that sexual potential is able to birth for the woman God, and in the combination with a man is able to, which technically should be able to birth the kingdom of God on earth. Not a technocratic bullshit kingdom of God. So that's the potential. So anything that's not reaching that potential is a form of prison. Because this is small. It's not that it's bad. It's that it's small. So for the human being who has a very profound connection to life and existence itself, even if it's unconscious, this is small. It cannot satisfy me. It's small. So it's a form of prison. It's not a form of prison. It is a prison, but unconsciously for the most part. And the beginning of healing is, well, when you start to realize, I'm not satisfied with this. I love this shit for whatever it's worth, but there's a deeper part of me that's not being met, and I'm suffering because of that, and I can no longer pretend that I'm not suffering. It's not, this is horrible what I'm doing, this is bad, taking this is bad. No, because this is bullshit, because you fucking love it. And people love to go into, a person who smokes a cigarette, you shouldn't smoke cigarettes, it's bad. No, they love to smoke their cigarettes. Cut the crap, that's why they do it. It doesn't mean that it doesn't create suffering. It means that there's a love relationship. In order to heal anything, first, there's only one thing that heals, and it's love. And it's not that bogus, new age, hippie bullshit kind of love. No, I'm talking about love meaning I really love this shit. I need it. I'm very grateful for it. I'm dependent on it. And without this, I'm in trouble. So it's a very primitive form of love, but it's love nevertheless. You're not rejecting it. You're allowing yourself to be, quote unquote, one with it. then something else can emerge in the proper circumstances. So all this, just to wrap it up, is to say the first mistake is that the person judges and says, this is bad, according to some bullshit that they have in their minds, or how they want to appear in the eyes of somebody else. Well, why? So me in my job and as a teacher, I help people to see their games or how they use their energies, what kind of grids they create with their energies. And generally they don't want to see, because they don't want to take any accountability for it, because most people are trying to hide. They're trying to hide from themselves. They're trying to hide from the world around them. They create these grids, but they want to pretend that these grids are not there while they maintain a facade of whatever bullshit they buy into. I don't care. But if you're interested in healing, which means reclaiming yourself and reclaiming your generative power, you need to see the facts. And you can't go ahead and judge it. You have to, yeah, I really do like, yeah. Yeah, guilty. Not guilty, I'm a horrible person, I'm gonna go to jail. Guilty, I'm like, yeah, I've been, yeah. And you kind of smile. So then the conversation can advance, because now it's like, okay, great, but now that you've acknowledged that you love it, and this is the realm that you operate, then you first realize how you're using your energy and how good you are at developing or creating certain forms or dynamics. And the dynamics are extremely complex in certain circumstances. It's not like two-dimensional. It's like multi-dimensional grids. Let's not get confused into this. And then you get to see, well, I'm really good. Yeah, I'm really good at creating that. I may not be able to create this or that, but I'm very good at creating this. So I have a skill set. I'm not just shit. I'm very good at something. So that's important in the process of healing. Then it's like, okay, so now what is the consequences of my creation? Well, I feel limited with this. I feel limited with that. I'm suffering because of this. I'm suffering because of that. I also see there's other people with whom I'm relating. I can also perceive where they're suffering. There's a form of suffocation. Deep down, I'm yearning for something more, maybe. I can't get more, or I can't create more because I'm limited. I only know how to use my energy in this way. And then you start to understand, well, yeah, why do I only use it that way? There's an intelligence to it, because I have this, and this leak, which oblige me to use that avenue only. That's the only thing I know how to do. I'm very good at it, though. So if I want to potentially create something new, to have a different experience, I need to heal, which means fix the leaks. So, do you see where I'm coming from? First, there's no judgment. I could judge as much as I like, but in reality, there is no judgment. This is how it works. This is pure electricity. Then, it's not, I want to work on myself so I can purify myself. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. No, it's practical. I want to, quote unquote, heal because I'm realizing what I'm creating due to my distress. So I want to create something else so I can have a greater experience. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, it's not by changing myself. It's by plugging the holes, which is going to allow the energy to channel itself in a more refined, precise way, which will birth something else, including attract you different kinds of relationship to have a different kind of geometry.